The Roman legion was the backbone of an empire that spanned continents, and its structure was a marvel of ancient engineering. Each legion consisted of around 5,000 men, divided into smaller units called centuries, each led by a centurion. These centuries were further broken down into groups of 8 soldiers who shared a tent and a cooking fire, fostering camaraderie and discipline. The legion's success hinged on rigorous training. Recruits drilled daily in swordplay, formation marching, and siege tactics. Every soldier carried a standardized kit: shield, short sword, javelins, and tools, ensuring uniformity that became Rome's trademark. Discipline was enforced with brutal efficiency. Deserters faced execution, while minor infractions could lead to flogging or reductions in pay. Yet this strict hierarchy also bred loyalty. Soldiers swore oaths to their generals and the Senate, binding them to a cause greater than themselves. The legion's structure allowed it to adapt. It could form a defensive testudo, tortoise, shield wall, pivot into offensive wedges, or construct fortified camps in hours. This versatility made Roman legions unstoppable against less organized foes. The logistical prowess of the legions was equally critical. Supply trains carried grain, medical supplies, and engineering tools, enabling campaigns far from Rome. Engineers within each legion built roads, bridges, and siege engines, turning barren landscapes into functional military zones. This self-sufficiency allowed legions to campaign year-round, even in hostile climates like Germania or Britannia. By the 1st century BCE, the Roman army was less a militia and more a professional force. Soldiers served 20-year terms, earning pensions in land or currency. This career military class transformed Rome from a regional power into a Mediterranean hegemon. The legion structure became a blueprint for empires to follow, blending discipline, innovation, and sheer force. In essence, the Roman legion was a machine, one that conquered not just through strength, but through meticulous organization. Its legacy lies not in the battles it won, but in the systems that made those victories possible. Legio X Equestris, Caesar's personal death squad. Julius Caesar's rise from ambitious politician to dictator was built on the backs of Legio X Equestris. Formed around 61 BCE, its early moniker Equestris hinted at its original cavalry role, though it later evolved into a predominantly infantry force. Caesar handpicked its recruits, favoring battle-tested veterans and men from northern Italy whose loyalty to him was unshakable. By the time of the Gallic Wars, it had become his go-to unit for impossible missions, an elite corps that embodied his drive for swift, decisive victory. In 58 BCE, the Helvetia tribe from modern Switzerland began migrating westward, threatening Roman allies in southern Gaul. Caesar intercepted them, with Legio X leading the charge. At the Battle of Bebracht, the legion smashed through the Helveti's defensive wagon circle, cutting them down in droves. This victory set the tone for the Gallic campaign. Legio X became Caesar's hammer, crushing one tribe after another with ruthless efficiency. The legion's bond with Caesar was personal. He marched alongside his men, ate the same rations, and was known to reward bravery on the spot. Centurions who distinguished themselves in the heat of battle found themselves promoted, and entire cohorts received extra pay after hard-won victories. During the Siege of Avaricum in 52 BCE, Legio X endured weeks of trench digging and constant arrow fire. When the city finally fell, Caesar let them sack it as a reward, a move that, while controversial, secured their devotion. Yet it was in the civil war against Pompey that Legio X earned its immortal reputation. At the Battle of Pharsalus in 48 BCE, Caesar's outnumbered forces stood precariously against Pompey's much larger army. He placed Legio X on his right flank, where Pompey's elite cavalry aimed to break through. Against all odds, they held the line, then counterattacked, routing Pompey's best troops. Afterward, Caesar addressed them as comrades, a rare honor highlighting their indispensable role in his triumph. Legio X Equestris wasn't just a fighting force, it was an extension of Caesar's ambition. Their victories in Gaul and Greece made him the most powerful man in Rome, but that same fierce loyalty also planted the seeds of his downfall. When he briefly disbanded the legion in 45 BCE, veterans rioted for overdue land grants, a sign of growing unrest. That broader tension would explode in Caesar's assassination a year later, showing how intertwined the legion's fate was with the fortunes and perils of its commander. 52. The Siege of Alesia. The Siege of Alesia in 52 BCE was Caesar's crowning achievement, and Legio X was the cornerstone of that success. Gallic chieftain Vercingetorix had united numerous tribes in a last-ditch bid to expel the Roman invaders. When he withdrew to the fortified town of Alesia, perched on a steep hill in central Gaul, Caesar opted to starve him out, a tactic that required fortitude and engineering genius. Legio X's engineers designed a formidable double-wall system. The inner ring encircled Alesia to prevent escapes or resupplies, while the outer ring fended off Gallic reinforcements. Stretching 10 miles, the entrenchments were lined with palisades, ditches, and concealed spikes. Night and day, Legio X soldiers stood guard, fending off raids by Vercingetorix's cavalry and repelling harassing forces from the relief army gathering beyond. When the Gallic relief force, allegedly over 200,000 strong, attacked, they targeted a vulnerable segment of the outer fortifications. Caesar personally rode to the threatened sector, donning his famed red cloak to rally the troops. Legio X led a swift countercharge, with centurions like Marcus Petronius sacrificing themselves to hold breaches long enough for Roman cavalry to strike the Gauls from the flank. The tactic worked. Vercingetorix's allies were routed, and the siege tightened around Alesia. Starvation took its toll on the Gallic defenders. Eventually, Vercingetorix surrendered to Caesar, who paraded him in Rome before executing him years later. For Legio X, Alesia was the apex of their campaign in Gaul, a testament to Roman discipline, engineering, and the legion's ability to pivot from brutal assaults to equally punishing defensive operations. Yet the siege had a grim underside. Thousands of Gallic civilians, caught between the walls and the Roman lines, died of hunger or disease, symbolizing the brutal reality beneath the veneer of Roman civilization. For Legio X, however, victory at Alesia reaffirmed their status as Caesar's ultimate weapon, a reputation carved into Roman history as much by engineering and endurance as by raw force of arms. Legio X's near-perfect record under Caesar. Between 58 and 44 BCE, Legio X Equestris was Caesar's most trusted unit, engaging in over 30 major battles across Gaul, Britain, Greece, and Egypt. Their success came not just from rigorous training, but also from Caesar's uncanny ability to exploit their strengths at the exact moment the enemy least expected. At the Sabis River in 57 BCE, for instance, the Nervii tribe ambushed Caesar's legions while they were entrenching. Legions 9th and 12th buckled under the initial onslaught, but 10th Legion swiftly formed a defensive square, giving Caesar time to redeploy reserves. Their stand was instrumental in turning a near defeat into a decisive win. During the invasions of Britain in 55 and 54 BCE, 10th Legion was among the first to land, grappling with Celtic chariots and coastal defenses they had never encountered before. Although these British expeditions achieved mixed military results, Caesar skillfully spun them into propaganda victories, lauding Legio X's bravery in crossing the unfamiliar sea. The legion's loyalty shone brightest in the civil war of 49-45 BCE. When Caesar famously crossed the Rubicon, Legio X marched at his side without hesitation. At Dyrrhachium in 48 BCE, they withstood a grueling siege against Pompey's larger forces, protecting critical sections of Caesar's fortifications. Caesar's reliance on them was so absolute that he even risked leading a small detachment to Alexandria in 47 BCE, a precarious intervention in Egypt's civil war. There, 10th Legion fought street by street, eventually burning the Egyptian fleet to secure a Roman-friendly regime. Yet their devotion had limits. After Caesar's death, 10th Legion veterans grew restless, demanding immediate land grants they felt they were owed. This near mutiny foreshadowed the end of an era in which the personal charisma of a single leader could bind an entire legion unconditionally. For a decade, Caesar's leadership had made Legio X practically invincible, but their faith was in the man, not the republic he claimed to serve. 25 BCE, the Cantabrian defeat. Legio X's decline came not against a colossal rival like Pompey or a fearsome barbarian horde in Gaul, but in the rugged mountains of northern Spain. The Cantabrian Wars, 29 to 19 BCE, represented Rome's final push to conquer all of Hispania, pitting the legion against the fiercely independent Cantabrian Astures, These tribes knew their territory intimately. Its cliffs, forests, and hidden valleys provided a natural fortress. Ambush after ambush exacted a toll on the legion's morale and manpower. The Emperor Augustus entrusted generals like Marcus Agrippa to subdue the region. Early Roman successes were undermined by the Cantabri's scorched earth tactics, poisoning wells and burning crops to deny supplies. By 25 BCE, Legio X found itself tangled in a war of attrition. Disease spread through camps, and logistical lines stretched thin across treacherous passes. Accustomed to set-piece battles in open fields, the legionaries struggled to adapt to a relentless insurgency. The climax came at the siege of Monte Vindio, a fortress perched atop sheer cliffs. After painstakingly scaling the rugged heights, the Romans discovered the Cantabri had chosen mass suicide over surrender. Though the fortress fell, the victory felt hollow. Heavy losses eroded the legion's once proud reputation, and Augustus, frustrated by the endless drain on resources, rotated the legion out of Hispania before the campaign had fully concluded. The Cantabrian conflict underscored the limits of Roman might. Legio X's training and discipline, so effective in Gaul and Greece, faltered in a guerrilla war with no clear front lines and no conventional army to crush. The campaign highlighted Rome's vulnerability when facing adversaries who refused open battle. For Legio X, these trials marked the end of its golden age. Although it continued to serve in subsequent missions, its mystique had faded, proof that even the most celebrated legions could be broken by unfamiliar terrain and an unyielding foe, the 1 million kill myth. Julius Caesar's commentaries on the Gallic War are gripping narratives, but they are also strategic propaganda. He famously claimed that his legions slaughtered over 1 million Gauls and Germans between 58 and 50 BCE, a figure modern historians largely dismiss as hyperbole. These inflated numbers served multiple ends. They amplified Caesar's military prowess, intimidated future foes, and justified the enormous resources he poured into campaigns far from the Roman heartland. The Helvetia migration of 58 BCE offers a prime example. Caesar alleged that of 368,000 Helvetia migrants, only 110,000 survived his onslaught. Archaeological data, however, suggests the tribe was considerably smaller, likely fewer than 50,000 people in total. Similarly, his claim to have annihilated 430,000 Suebi warriors at Vosh seems equally unrealistic. The region's food supply could not have supported such a horde. Why embellish? Caesar needed the Senate and the Roman populace to believe Gaul was a grave threat, thereby excusing his protracted campaigns. The larger the enemy, the more magnificent his victory, and by extension, the more honor he brought to Rome and to himself. Legio X Equestris played a starring role in these tall tales, portrayed as the invincible spearhead of a Roman juggernaut. In truth, Caesar relied heavily on alliances with various Gallic tribes, diplomatic manipulations, and careful logistics to tip the scales in his favor. Modern estimates suggest that 600,000 to 1 million people, soldiers and civilians, died or were enslaved during Caesar's 8-year campaign, still a staggering figure. The million-kill myth lingers because it reinforces the image of Rome's unstoppable military might. Yet it also obscures the tenacity of the Gallic resistance. Tribes like the Nervii and the Arverni regrouped multiple times, forcing Caesar to engage in bloody sieges and brutal mopping-up operations. In the end, Caesar's statistics reveal less about actual body counts and more about how he shaped his public image. By painting Gaul as a never-ending sea of enemies, he elevated both his own legacy and that of Legio X, ensuring that their deeds would echo in Roman lore long after the battles ended. 1st century BCE to 1st century CE, from Equestris to Gemina. After Caesar's murder in 44 BCE, Legio X Equestris found itself in a precarious position. It initially supported Mark Antony in the ensuing power struggle against Octavian, the future Emperor Augustus. Alongside Antony, the legion fought at Philippi in 42 BCE, where the assassins of Caesar met their end. But as Antony's fortunes waned in his conflict with Octavian, Legio X had to reinvent itself to survive. Octavian merged the legion with another unit, creating Legio X Gemina, the Twin. This transformation marked a departure from the singular identity it held under Caesar. Relocated to the Danube frontier, 10th Gemina spent the early decades of the 1st century CE patrolling the borderlands and clashing with Germanic tribes. Under Emperor Claudius, it participated in the invasion of Britannia in 43 CE, playing a crucial role in the capture of Cumulodunum, modern-day Colchester. By 70 CE, the legion was back on the continent, helping to suppress the Batavian Revolt, a major uprising of Germanic auxiliaries along the Rhine. During the tumultuous year of the Four Emperors in 69 CE, it initially sided with Vitellius before switching allegiance to Vespasian. This pragmatism protected it from the post-war purges that decimated less flexible legions. As Rome shifted from aggressive expansion to consolidating its vast territories, 10th Gemina symbolized the empire's evolving priorities. Stationed in Pannonia, modern-day Hungary, it helped construct roads, supervise mining operations, and integrate local recruits into its ranks. The legion's character changed from an almost exclusively Italian corps to a multi-ethnic force reflecting Rome's sprawling diversity. This new 10th Legion was no longer the personal blade of a conquering general, but a stabilizing instrument of imperial governance. Its forts became nuclei of urban development, laying the foundations for cities like Vindobona, modern-day Vienna. Though less glamorous than Caesar's campaigns, this quieter chapter was vital for Rome's longevity. Maintaining prosperity and loyalty in the provinces often required legions that could build as well as they could fight. Legio V Macedonia, the 600-year legion. Legio V Macedonica was born in the chaos of the Roman Republic's final days. Formed around 43 BCE by Octavian, the future Emperor Augustus, its original mission was to stabilize the Balkans. Few could have predicted this legion would outlive the Republic, the Empire, and even the Western Roman Empire itself. For 6 centuries, it adapted to political upheavals, shifting borders, and evolving enemies. Its longevity was no accident. Stationed in Moesia, modern Bulgaria and Serbia, Legio V guarded the Danube frontier, a region rich in silver and iron. These resources funded its operations, while its strategic location kept it relevant to emperors from Trajan to Justinian. By the time it disbanded in the 7th century CE, it had served under pagan emperors, Christian rulers, and Byzantine bureaucrats, a testament to its unmatched flexibility. Yet mere geography does not explain the legion's remarkable lifespan. Early on, Legio V's commanders understood the importance of cultivating local support. As it established permanent bases along the Danube, the legion also constructed roads, bridges, and fortified towns. This infrastructure not only served military needs, but also facilitated trade, fostering goodwill among provincial elites. In return, these communities supplied fresh recruits, provisions, and political cover, buffers against the empire's frequent palace intrigues. Generations of soldiers from Thrace, Dacia, and beyond grew up seeing Legio V not as an occupying force, but as a stable fixture of regional life. Equally vital was the legion's seamless transition between regimes. When the empire formally divided in 395 CE, Legio V slipped into Byzantine service with minimal disruption. It fought under Eastern Roman emperors like Theodosius II and Justinian I, shifting from pagan rites to Christian liturgies without the factional strife that plagued other units. Archaeological finds in the Balkans even suggest the existence of legion chapels, blending Roman martial traditions with Christian worship. By the 7th century, however, relentless Slavic and Avar incursions weakened the Danube frontier. The once proud Legio V, its ranks depleted and scattered, quietly faded into history. Decorated to death, Legio V Macedonica earned more titles than any other Roman legion. Augustus first honored it as Macedonica after crushing rebellions in Macedonia. Later, Emperor Domitian awarded it Pia Fidelis, faithful and loyal, for staying loyal during Saturninus's revolt in 89 CE. Each title came with perks, extra pay, land grants, and the right to display victory laurels on its standards. But these honors also bound the legion to the emperor's whims. When Trajan needed a reliable force for his Dacian wars, he turned to Legio V precisely because of its Pia Constans, or steadfastly loyal reputation. Over time, the legion accrued an impressive string of epithets, Macedonica Pia Fidelis Constans, and more, each reflecting a specific campaign or act of loyalty. Imperial propaganda turned these titles into powerful political tools. Public ceremonies often highlighted the legion's honors, reinforcing the emperor's legitimacy. In a world where alliances shifted with the blink of an eye, Legio V's consistent loyalty made it an invaluable asset. Yet the flip side of constant favor was constant demand. A decorated legion was always first in line for the toughest assignments, from quelling internal uprisings to launching punitive expeditions in hostile territory. During the 3rd century crisis, when emperors rose and fell within months, Legio V's reputation as fidelis or loyal kept it immune from political purges. Emperors knew attacking Legio V would alienate the Danube frontier, a region critical for gold and troops. Even when the empire fractured, Byzantine rulers retained the legion's titles to legitimize their rule. Yet, these honors came at a cost. Legio V was constantly deployed to hotspots, from Judea's deserts to Persia's mountains. Its soldiers died not for Rome, but for the idea of Rome, an ideal that by the 6th century existed more in memory than reality. Legio II Parthica, the mobile strike force. In the early 3rd century CE, Emperor Septimius Severus faced a crisis. Traditional legions, stationed for decades along quiet frontiers, had grown sluggish in both discipline and deployment. When Germanic tribes breached the Rhine and Danube lines around 194 CE, and the Parthians menaced the eastern frontier, Rome's defenses proved too cumbersome. Severus's response was unprecedented. He formed Legio II Parthica as a rapid response force based in Italy, defying the centuries-old tradition of keeping no legions in the heartland. Unlike older legions, Legio II Parthica was a roving strike force that could travel along the empire's extensive road network at remarkable speed, covering 30 miles a day, double the typical pace of conventional forces. This was made possible not just by elite training and discipline, but by thoughtful logistics. Supply wagons hauled prefabricated siege engines and fortification materials, and each soldier was equipped with standardized gear designed for quick mobility. Danubian veterans, renowned for their resilience on freezing frontiers, filled the ranks. Their battle-hardened leadership shaped the legion into a cohesive fighting unit, ready to face any threat in any theater. Crucially, Severus positioned Legio II Parthica at Castra Albana, near Rome. This base of operations gave him a strategic advantage. The legion could embark within days to reinforce threatened borders. In 197 CE, it spearheaded a lightning campaign into Parthian territory, culminating in the sack of Ctesiphon. Not long after, by 208 CE, it had redeployed to Britannia to put down a rebellion there. No older legion could have pulled off such a feat of endurance and rapid redeployment. Severus's innovation was a turning point in Roman military strategy, an early model for mobile field armies that would characterize later imperial defense. The legacy and decline of the mobile strike force. By the dawn of the 4th century CE, the legion that had been forged to save the empire was itself a casualty of imperial overstretch. The administrative reforms of Diocletian and Constantine saw the rise of two main types of military units, the frontier limitani and the mobile comitatenses. Legio II Parthica's original purpose, quickly moving to any crisis point, had, in many ways, laid the blueprint for these new field armies. Yet, the constant demand to defend multiple frontiers simultaneously meant the legion's core identity dissolved as its cohorts were reassigned to distant commands. Political intrigues also took their toll. Stationing a powerful legion in Italy had given Severus an edge, but subsequent emperors feared military coups. Over time, Legio II Parthica was reshuffled, partially disbanded, or absorbed into imperial guard units and other comitatenses. By the middle of the 4th century, references to Legio II Parthica become scarce, a testament to the unstable period known as the Crisis of the 3rd century. Nevertheless, the innovative concept behind Legio II Parthica endured. Its formation heralded a new era in Roman warfare, an age when the empire could no longer rely solely on static frontier legions. Although Legio II eventually succumbed to the same chaos it was created to quell, its legacy lived on in the flexible and mobile field armies that would define Roman military doctrine for generations to come. In summary, Legio II Parthica symbolized both the innovative spirit of the Severan Age and the challenges that would define Rome's later years. A product of crisis, it rose to legendary status through decisive victories, but was ultimately undone by the relentless pressures that reshaped the empire. The Praetorian Guard, elite, until they weren't. The Praetorian Guard began as Augustus's personal protectors in 27 BC, an elite corps of hand-picked soldiers. Stationed in Rome, they enjoyed double pay and shorter service terms than regular legions. Initially, their role was defensive, deterring assassins and quelling riots, but proximity to power soon corrupted them. By the 1st century AD, the Guard had morphed into kingmakers, exploiting their position to influence imperial succession. The Guard's first major betrayal came in 41 AD with the assassination of Caligula. After years of enduring his erratic behavior, Praetorian tribune Cassius Chaerea led the coup, stabbing the emperor in a palace corridor. In the chaos, the Guard looted the imperial treasury and debated restoring the Republic. Instead, they settled on Claudius, Caligula's uncle, extracting hefty bribes for their support. This set a dangerous precedent. Emperors now ruled by the Praetorians' consent. Over time, the Guard's loyalty became a commodity. In 69 AD, the year of the 4 emperors, they auctioned the throne to the highest bidder, Otho, after murdering Galba. When Otho fell to Vitellius, the Guard switched sides again, only to be disbanded by Vespasian. Reforms under later emperors curtailed their power, but the damage was done. The Praetorians' reputation shifted from protectors to parasites, more interested in profit than duty. The Guard's final act of treachery came in 193 AD with the murder of Pertinax. Outraged by his attempts to impose discipline, Praetorians stormed the palace and killed him, then sold the empire to Didius Julianus for a massive sum. Public outrage forced Septimius Severus to dissolve the Guard, replacing them with loyal Danubian legions. The Praetorians' dissolution marked the end of an era, one where elite status bred hubris rather than honor. Conclusion: Rome's legions were more than military units. They were reflections of the empire's ambitions, flaws, and relentless will to endure. Topping this Hall of Fame is Legio X Equestris, Julius Caesar's razor-edged instrument of conquest. Their audacity at Alesia and Pharsalus didn't just win battles, they rewrote the rules of Roman warfare. Yet their brilliance was inseparable from Caesar himself. Like a sword without a wielder, Legio X lost its edge after his death, fading into the shadows of history. Their story is a paradox. Loyalty built empires, but dependence on a single leader could doom even the greatest legion. In stark contrast stands Legio V Macedonica, the 600-year phoenix. While others dissolved in defeat or disgrace, Legio V adapted, first as conquerors of Dacia's gold, then as guardians of Rome's eastern frontiers. They endured civil wars, barbarian invasions, and the empire's slow fracture, surviving not through flashy heroics, but institutional resilience. Their veterans settled in conquered lands, their bloodlines blending with locals from Judea to Mesopotamia. Legio V wasn't just a legion, it became a living bridge between eras, proving that longevity in a chaotic world required pragmatism over pride. And then there were the Praetorian Guard, Rome's most infamous elites. Born as protectors, they metastasized into predators, their daggers deciding emperors' fates for a sack of gold. The Guard's betrayal of figures like Caligula and Pertinax didn't just topple rulers, it eroded faith in the empire itself. Their legacy is a warning. Power without accountability corrupts absolutely. While Legio X and V served Rome, the Praetorians served themselves, their greed accelerating the empire's decay. These legions embody Rome's dual nature, noble and brutal, visionary and self-destructive. Legio X reminds us that even legends fade. Legio V teaches that survival demands reinvention. The Praetorians, they're a dark mirror, reflecting the rot that festers when loyalty becomes a transaction. Together, they form the DNA of Roman history, a helix of glory and ruin, forever intertwined. Which legion would you want to fight for? Charge into the comments and rally your pick. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and smash that bell for more ancient history deep dives.